Nicholas. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you. I don't take it lightly. I remember at one point I was actually overweight. I don't know if people can see my camera, but I was 60 pounds heavier than I am now. And it wasn't until someone shared a bit of information with me that just something clicked. And I took what they said that day and it changed my life forever. And so every opportunity like this, I know that we're talking about investments and talking about real estate, but it's an opportunity to change lives forever and how they look at things. So I'm grateful for the opportunity.
I love it, and we are really glad to have you here too with us. So, before we start with the usual questions about investing and all that fun stuff, tell us a little bit about yourself, Nicholas.
Yes, I love the investing questions more than talking about myself. So I will be going in depth on those. But just a little bit about me is it's a very weird thing that I ended up in my position. And for me, I give all glory to God for my transformation and where I'm at today. But I grew up in a family where the father that owned a business. And unfortunately, because he didn't get to get on webinars like this and learn from how you could invest your money, we ended up claiming bankruptcy in 2009 as a family. And I just saw how difficult that was, him not being around people that understood what to do with money and how to make shifts inside of his company. And even when he had money, he didn't know what to do with it. So he just kept it and held it, never invested it, just bought more stuff. And typically, when you go through something like that, you usually are very conservative afterwards. You know, as a child that grows up in that type of environment, one of the downsides of it is you typically don't build anything bigger than you can control. And the problem with ever investing is generally you're putting money in places that you're confident. You do every bit of analysis that you can do to make sure that you're vetting a company correctly and where you're putting it. But at the end of the day, you don't have the full control. And so you typically hoard things, and the hard thing with that is you never really get to see your potential. And so I've really fought against that my entire life. So I've been LP in many different investments, even still to this day, not only invest in our own funds here, and I think it's a very big deal. I'll talk about that later on why I think that GP should invest as an LP in different projects and why that's a big deal. I also think that for me, that was something that I really had to fight through. And so I got to this position really through, I failed high school. So I'm not going to be your person who went to college and went through high school. And that's why it's so weird that I'm in the position that I'm in now of leadership with Ally that's been around for 22 years. And I graduated with a 1.8 GPA. I've been married now for 12 years. I got married at 20. My wife was 18. I have a daughter that's 2 weeks old, 2 weeks in a couple days now, almost 3 weeks on Friday. I have a 4-year-old son. And for the last decade, I've built businesses. So if you were to Google my name, you can Google anything you want. You could say Nicholas Bayerle bad, Nicholas Bayerle good, whatever to learn more about the last decade of reputation. But my companies have been featured in Forbes. We didn't pay for articles. They just wrote them on their own. And then got to the point where I was ranked top 30 entrepreneur under 30. I'm now over 30 years old, so don't meet that category anymore. Um, and throughout that process, built great relationships. And through being an LP, got very interested in real estate. I started actually buying tax lien homes and tax sale list homes back in 2010 when properties were up for auction. I was buying them for, whatever I could, $1,000 at an auction just so people would pay property taxes. And that's how I got my start on that side. I started doing some flipping of land, and that's where I got really interested in what Allied was doing, and realized how much money I was losing by not understanding the double close method and how to negotiate with builders, and got very interested. And so over the last decade, I've built businesses, and inside of Allied, you have great operators. You have the founder, Cody, who just looked through my window, seeing what I was doing here. He was going to say something to me and stopped. And he's been doing it for 22 years and is known as one of the best, if not the very best, when it comes to land entitlement. And even DR Horton, who's the biggest home builder in the US, has said that same thing, that you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who does it better. And that's really from his leadership and the team that he's built. And I've seen our CEO, who built the fourth fastest growing company in the US as well, sold it and then came here, really brought me into a place where I knew this company was going somewhere. And that's where I built my career here. And then now I've rised up to VP of capital and then also land procurement. So when it comes to finding the properties, finding the right deals, I built the entire team that gets those off-market properties with people that don't want to sell, wanting to sell, and become the best deals that we now put inside of the company as well as the funds. And so very interesting place to go from a dropout in high school. Basically, I graduated about the 1.8. I think they just wanted me out. They didn't want to deal with me anymore. To the last 12, 13 years of building a career and then ending up in the position that I'm in. It's definitely not what my family would have expected, but I'm sure they're very happy about it.
Absolutely. First of all, congratulations on your daughter. That is amazing news.
Thank
And
you.
I really love your background, the story. It's very impressive. You know what it's like. You said bankruptcy, right? So you know what it's like to not have anything, but also now 12 years later to be here. That's absolutely impressive. So tell me a little bit about Allied and your current role with Allied, because it sounds like you have built a quite impressive role and standing within your current company.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, Allied altogether has been around for 22 years. So we've done real estate development all the way through. So we built full subdivisions. And throughout that whole process with Allied, they just saw how good they were and the opportunity and entitlements. One of the interesting things about land is you take a super expensive property on the coast of California, let's say, and not saying that I always love California. It's because there's some people that go, why would you do real estate there? But let's just say we're on the coast of California and I'm overlooking the water. I could have a house that's completely garbage, terrible house, super expensive. Why? The land that it sits on. I go take that same house, I put it in the middle of the desert, and now that house isn't worth anything. So very interesting that they started noticing that that dirt controls deals. Every deal is going to start with the dirt. And so they just really focused on, and Allied together is really focused on how do we just get approvals for residential housing and then sell to the home builder. And that's been our main model. And it's not that we couldn't take it further and develop, but with a housing shortage right now that we see since 2008 when builders started pulling back, which started decreasing inventory output, new lots that were being developed. And then all of a sudden we get into the 2020 when everyone's kind of sitting there and people are buying homes and housing prices are going up so much. And then all of a sudden we see interest rates rise. And so all these things have really pushed this low inventory that's really been started since 2008. Now they say we have a deficit of about 3.5 conservatively, all the way up to 6 million. That'll take about 10 to 15 years to catch up to. And people would think that's because interest rates have gone up. People got locked into a 3%, so they're not going to sell their house. And even if they did, how are they going to afford the new payment on the new house? Yes, that was a contributor. But then you can go back even further, all the way to 2008, when builder activity, they just got very timid because they got really hurt, right? My dad got hurt. 2009, we owned a business, got very hurt. We became very timid. And now all of a sudden that's pushed us to a place now where it's very important. So we find it to be very important for us to have a win-win with everyone. So not only we have great investors and we have great returns, but also on top of that, our company does well, which is necessary. We need to stay in business. The home builders are happy that they have prime pieces of property they can now build on. The cities that we're building in are now getting more taxes from the properties that we're producing, and we're helping them. The homeowners are very happy because now they got new people that are being incentivized to go into new homes. And so all together now with putting out lots, we're able to really help with that development problem right now where we just have low inventory. And so it's very great to do that without having to undercut people or hurt people. You know, we typically pay more than what the as is value on properties that whether it's a farmer or family or maybe an investor who had a property. And so we're not undercutting them. And it just feels really great. That was one of the biggest reasons I came here. And so now we've done 30 projects full cycle. Our average deal size, our purchase price usually about 4 million, sales price around 7.5 million. So for average deal size. And so we now done 30 full cycle. Our team's been phenomenal. I'm not taking credit for any of this side, by the way. On underwriting side, those 30 deals we've done, we've never pushed them to get land use approval and not got them approved. Not saying it can't happen, definitely a chance. But that's where you would lose money, would be that you invested all the money to get approvals, but then all of a sudden you don't get it approved. And now the land's not worth anything. So important when we talk about the double close a little bit later as well. So I've been very impressed with Allied. We have 30 full-time employees. We're out here in Scottsdale, Arizona, very beautiful area. But we're not limited to here. We're doing deals from Florida, North Carolina, Alabama, Texas, Colorado, Arizona, Oregon, Washington. We fly through approvals there. We do great there. We have great relationships. And so we're active all over the US, even though we're headquarters here in Scottsdale.
Amazing. Now, since you brought it up, let's actually talk about the double close method. Why do you use the double close method? And can you actually explain it to some of our attendees today?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example from a fund level. So we did deals for 18 years before we ever had funds. So we just did them with our own money. And as we just got too much influx of new properties, we couldn't get into them. So it was like, all right, how do we partner with someone? How do we partner with investors to get into this deal? There's a great quote that says, if it makes you money, it costs you nothing, because it didn't really cost you if it made you money. And so we saw it was more costly not getting into a deal and not having to pay an investor than it was to get an investor and then get into a deal that we would have never got into in the first place and make a little bit of money. And so the reason we started the double close is simply this. Let's say you have a $15 million fund. You have an average price of land that's $4 million to purchase. You have to put 40% down on each piece of land. So that takes a chunk of the capital from the fund. And then let's just say you put $1 million towards development. So then you got $1 million towards that 40% down as well. Now all of a sudden you have very little properties in the fund. You also have a risk factor of figuring out, if you get into a piece of land, you could see 4 to 7 months down the road as you go through due diligence that, hey, there's some unforeseen things we didn't see here. I don't think this is going to be very profitable. I don't think this is a great thing, whether it's the price per lot for water. There could be a ton of different situations that go through. Typically, internally, we'll walk away from about 15% of deals that we get into. So that's why we use funds and have lots of deals. We'll have like 14 to 16 deals in a $15 million fund like that. And so the reason why is, like, if you walk away from one of those 5 deals you could get in the fund, that's going to really hurt the performance. And also, if you were to pay for land, overpay for it, quote unquote, pay for what it's worth, and then get into it and realize it's not actually going to get approved, get those approvals for land use, now all of a sudden you've overpaid for a piece of property that's not really worth as much as it afterwards, after you don't get those approvals. So what we ended up doing, this is the way that every smart builder will do. So I won't say that we call it the best kept secret in real estate, because people just don't know it on the general area of people, that you can use a purchase sale agreement and lock up and control that property, but not actually have to own it. All the big builders, all the smart ones, they're going to do that. And so what we ended up doing is we started doing purchase sale agreements with the sellers of the property. We locked them up. We're able to give them a better price, meaning than what they could sell as is right now. We use all the money to develop. We have full control of the land. We can walk away. We can renegotiate. We can then have a builder come in, and they can now sign a purchase sale agreement with us saying that when these approvals are done, we're going to buy it for this much. So I talked about average purchase, 4 million. So we'll sign that with the seller of the property. We'll use $860K on average to entitle a deal, to get the deals done. 75% of that's engineering and 15% environmental studies. 10% legal fees, and then you'll have earnest money in there as well. And that'll typically be out of the purchase price, and it'll be negotiated, refundable, in an escrow account. And I may be going too far, but just so for the numbers people out there. And then from there, we'll have a purchase sale agreement with the builder. And so that builder will now be giving us that purchase sale agreement, also having earnest money, but based on the sales price of the home, the sales price of the property. So that'd go towards that $7.5 million we talked about. Now, all of a sudden, I have a list of properties right in front of me, actually, that took $575K of our money to develop, and we sold them for an average of $2.3 million profit. So $575K for us to develop, because none of our money was going towards purchase price. All of our money is just going toward development. If we find something in a property that we don't think is good, we can just walk away, because we have no money into that deal besides whatever we spent so far in that process of doing due diligence or going through and getting some approvals. So we could walk away and lose virtually almost nothing, right? And I have an average, if people want to go through that different time, of what we would lose. And so it really hedges the risk of the fund, the risk of the company, and then also how many deals can we get in? 14 to 16 instead of 4 to 5. So now all of a sudden it affects the performance. And so very rarely have I found something that increases profit that decreases risk. And so that's what the double close has allowed us to do. And so at the end of that, when we get done entitling, we'll get paid from the builder. The builder will pay us our $7.5 million. We'll pay off the seller their $4 million. We spent a couple $100,000 to entitle, maybe 575 was our average on those deals that I have in front of me. And then we take that difference and we just transfer title straight through us, straight to the home builder, and they start developing. And these are D.R. Horton, Tri Pointe, Meritage, KB, Roush Coleman, Lennar, all the top 50 home builders in the US that we generally work with. You can work with any developer, but that's just the ones that we work with.
Amazing. Now, you said this is the best kept secret in real estate. So do you see a lot of other players in the industry using this method, the double close method?
They should. I don't focus as much. There's that old picture of, I think it was Phelps, Michael Phelps, when it was one of his last Olympics. and there's a picture of him winning one of the races, and he's focused straight ahead on the edge of the pool, while second place that was supposed to beat him, they have a picture of him looking at Michael Phelps. So I very rarely am like looking at what other people are doing, and if they're doing the same thing as us. There's plenty of people that try to do the same thing as us, and we're very open, right? I'm on here telling you use double close. It's smart,
Of
but
course.
the smart ones too, it just decreases risk so much. But I talk to people every day that get into a deal, they don't underwrite it correctly. It takes them 5 years to get approvals. And that could be for many reasons: development potential, it could be utilities, it could be the average sales price of homes, it could be builder activity. There's no one in there that wants to buy it. So you want to make sure that you're looking for all those things. And if you're going to work with a GP, someone who's running this play, and you're going to work alongside them, these are things that you want to make sure in their process. Hey, how are you acquiring deals? Where are you acquiring them? What's the average sales price of homes that you need to be profitable? What gives it development potential? Like, what needs to be around there? Like, can you do septic and well, or do you need utilities? And what's the difference between the two? How many builders do you need in a local area? Like, and for any industry, this should just be buyers. Are there buyers for this product that you're developing? For us, the benefit is that because we worked with all these big builders and sold to them, anywhere we go, we can just call them, say, hey, we're in your area. We've sold to you all these properties. Can you tell us what product do you want? And so the best products in the world that you could ever make are products that people have told you that they want to buy, right? You're just building the product that they already want. You're not just building a product and hoping that people want it. So typically for us, we're always sitting there working closely with those builders, and we're building the exact product that they want for that area, from a jurisdictional level all the way back to a home builder level. And then we go back to all the way to our level and see, can we make this deal work based on exactly what they want, what the cost is to build? And those are typically things that they wouldn't share with the majority of people. If you haven't sold to them, one of them would probably reach out to me if they hear this and go, I would tell. Very rarely are they going to tell you all the info about what it costs to build, what they're going to sell the houses for, if they think that you're just going to sell a piece of property to their competition. But when you've sold to them before, they're typically a lot more open. And so it took 22 years to do that, but I'm grateful to be in the spot now.
Beautiful. Now, you spoke a little bit about profits from this double close method. And I remember from our conversation prior to this webinar, we spoke about the 20% preferred returns. So would you like to explain a little bit about what 20% preferred returns really mean, and why isn't everyone doing it?
Yeah, I'll address preferred return first, and then I'll tell you why our percent is where it's at. Right now, out of real estate funds, we're the fastest deal cycle, so we can get deals done. We say 18 months on average. We do have projects we've done in 12 months, and so we can fully get in and out of project. Now, we don't allow people to invest in one project, so we typically have them diversified across multiple, so we'll have multiple closing and all of that. And preferred return, by definition, just because I get a lot of questions, I have almost 220 active investors right now, and it takes a lot of calls to do that and a lot of conversations. And so when I look at that, preferred return is really just the fact that what do you get paid as an LP and as an investor prior to a property dipping into the profit split? And so for us, our model is that we have our investors make 20% preferred returns before we ever dip into profit splits. And so if a project were to close and all the profits just met the 20% for the investor on that single project, because we'll always have multiple, then our company would not dip into the profits of that project. All those profits would then go to the investor. Everything above there would be splits, and splits are all negotiated per fund that you're in. But for us, our investors are at 20% prior to us ever taking that split. And best believe that charities are great. We support them, but we're definitely not working super hard over here to just pay investors the pref and not take a profit split. We want to work hard and get into that profit split as well and get profit from the deals. But we also are the highest pref in real estate funds right now as well at the 20%. And I think it's important because projected IRR, you can really say whatever you want, right? You could say, we're projecting 27%. Projecting could be, might be, and that's great. Pref's also not a promise either. All it is just saying that company is saying, until you are here, we're not going to dip into splits. And so though it's not a promise, it's something that you can you can sit there and go, okay, they're putting their money where their mouth is. Okay. If I get 10%, then that company's not taking splits, and that's a risk that they're willing to take. Why would they do that? And generally they would know their margins. And at the end of the day, the only reason we can do that is simply just because of the double close, the best kept secret in real estate. If we did not have the double close, which decreases risks, allows us to have low money up front. I think I walked away from a deal last month and we lost $8,000. And I have a deal right now in one of our funds or I'll go one of our past deals. We sold a project that was 5.2 million profit. So when you have 5.2 million profit in one deal, and then you can walk away from another deal and lose very little, you can all of a sudden now get more deals into a fund. And so simply the ability to do more deals gives us more margin, more profit, decreases risk. And for us, those two things made this the fastest deal cycle as well as the highest preferred return.
Perfect. Would you agree a lot of investors who might not have done their research always confuse the difference between preferred returns versus guaranteed returns?
I would say that would be a good, like I could see why it'd be a mistake, because preferred would be like, I'm getting a guaranteed return here. And I would tell you right now that if there was any company paying preferred return at that percentage, Warren Buffett, America, foreign investing countries, they'd all put their money there, right? If you want things, nothing has a guarantee, right?
Exactly.
Perfectionism is expecting a guarantee in a world that gives no guarantees, right? If you look at America, if you invest in a bond or have any debt that you've loaned to America, they've never not paid. There's plenty of real estate deals that people have had fail, right? And still, America at some point could fail on a payment. They just haven't so far. But you're also seeing the difference of returns, right? You could have very low single digit, or you could have no return, or you could even have a negative return hedging against inflation. And so you just have to look at that and go, well, preferred return is not a guaranteed return. It's just, where does the money get allocated? So when we close a deal, our investors get paid first. So they'll get paid first, and then we get paid if there's any remaining profit. And so that's a great question. And yeah, if you want to guarantee, there's just not a world of guarantees. So it's even in a bank will tell you that maybe they won't, but a bank, there's no guarantee necessarily. There's been plenty of past instances where, people want to pull a ton of money out of a bank and they can't right away. That's still not a guarantee, but it's scary because you see this with college. I love college. I wish I went. I wish I was good enough to have gone. But the reason why people go is because everyone says it's a great idea. So they're willing to invest the money. But when it comes to maybe getting educated on something, they're scared outside of school to maybe pay for a little bit of education because their friends tell them, oh, that could be a scam, because it's just not socially acceptable. And so oftentimes people feel more comfortable with socially acceptable things rather than actually good due diligence. So you just got to sometimes think, okay, am I scared of this because I haven't done the due diligence and it's just not socially acceptable? Or am I also okay with this because everyone's told me to go to college and invest 50K? Now I'm saying a lot of great careers come out of college. I have many people here that work all around me that have great careers that have gotten them into this position because of their college degree. But also at the same time, if you look at education outside of school, we should look at it, is this education going to help me further my career? And if it does, then that could be a great investment, even if other people aren't used to it yet. And so just being very careful with getting influences from just culture around you, telling, oh, the safest place is in a bank or under your bed. Well, under your bed, there's still someone who can come and find your money somewhere. So in all those situations, I don't see 100% guarantee, but there's definitely places that you can do good due diligence. You can work with other companies that have done good due diligence on companies. You can look at reputation. There's things that I think we'll go over later that I think are very important when looking at an investment. And everyone's different. You're different than me. Everything I'm saying today, I'll talk from a general perspective. I know that we had talked about beforehand. I've interviewed over 500 millionaires, personally spoke to them, sat down with them and talked to them about their careers, how they made their money, how they preserve their money, what they do with it with their kids. I sat down with the Green family that owns Hobby Lobby, multi-billion dollars, tens of thousands of employees. I asked them how they structure their trust, how they work with their kids, how do their kids get paid, how much money, how much when, what do they have the right to? You look at families that do it right and do it wrong. So I'll be taking from their information as well as my personal experience. Everyone else's will be obviously different than mine.
Absolutely. Now, education is so important, like you said, hence why we're also having this webinar together, because we want to educate the public on things they might not be aware of. So with that point, what do you think are the most important things you should know or look into when you're investing as an LP, Nicholas?
Yeah, I think that here's just a few that are on the top of my mind that are pushing right now, since I've already had multiple investor calls, even today, talking to great investors. I think it's important to know, are the people that are in the fund, do they have skin in the game? So I think that's important. Every new fund that we open, including this one, I'll always be the first investor. I'm not going to talk to someone who just, if I've not made the sacrifice on my own. So I think that's important. Do they have skin in the game? I think reputation is big. And so you have to know every single person generally has high risk things they get into and they allocate a certain amount of money towards that. Very low risk things that they get into and they allocate money towards that. Then they have maybe their money makers in the middle where they're making discerned opportunities. They do some real estate, some flips, some multifamily, whatever it is. And so you got to know what portion of your money's going where. Not everything's going to be high risk. Maybe for some people, that's your thing. That's great. Maybe not everything's going to be low risk. Maybe for some people, that's great. But I look at, based on the model that you're investing in, did it work 20 years ago, 50 years ago? Does it work now? Will it work 20 or 50 years from now? I think that those are very important things. There's some things that people invest in now that haven't been around for more than 10 years. So you just got to know where that fits, where you don't really have any historical data of how this will do later, if it will be around later, if it's good right now, will it work later? What did it work back in the day? If you go back 20 years, it didn't exist. Some people might be filling in the blank on some of the things that I'm referring to. Not against any of those things. It's just knowing when I'm vetting an investment, I have to look at those types of things. I would look at the operators. I think that's a very big deal. You look at a lot of these industries, and at the end of the day, a lot of them are very good. I talk to investors every day that are invested in lots of different types of real estate, since that's the world I'm in, or oil and gas. And many of them have very big advantages and are very good at certain times. And at the end of the day, the reason why people lose is oftentimes the people that are involved. And so you want to look at how do they underwrite deals? Where do they purchase? What's the operator's track record, right? I told you guys at the beginning of this, go look me up, go look Cody up, go look up Brandon Poulin, our CEO. Like, you want to do some research into the companies, and you don't want to just take the chance with telling them to send you the info, because then they're just going to send you everything that you want to see. And so if you do some research, go look at it. I think it's important to know a third-party legal team. I think is very important. If you have an on-staff legal team that's writing up PPMs and auditing how they use the money and how they distribute, they want to keep their job. So, and they work for the company that is paying them. Whereas a third-party legal team, a securities attorney and their team, they're going to have to uphold their own reputation. I think that's always really great, because now, even though it's an investment from the fund, right? It's not cheap to have a third-party smart legal team. Now they're going to be writing up PPMs. Now they're going to be going and looking at how you're using the fund's money in accordance to that, and what compliance looks like. They're going to be the one that are looking at distributions and making sure that they're accurate based on the sales and the profit and all of that. And those are just a few things off top of mind that I think are very important.
Amazing, Nicholas. This has been absolutely wonderful. And just a quick note, I really loved what you said before. You have to get past the boogeyman and educate yourself, especially in the world of investing.
Correct. Yep. And everyone's different. So that's why what will work for me and what works for all of our 200 plus investors may not be what you're looking for. And so you want to figure out, what do you want, and how are you going to set up what you're going to invest in? Maybe different than someone else. Maybe the same as someone else. But it's very individual to the person. And I very much so take that into account.